Movies love to hide little secrets. Sometimes it's a quick cameo, sometimes it's a blink and you miss it reference that only the hardcore fans catch. And once you spot them, you can't unsee them. Today we're breaking down the hidden Easter eggs tucked inside some of the most iconic films ever made. Let's start with one of the most famous examples. Inception, 2010. The wedding ring clue. Everyone knows the big question at the end of Inception. Is Cobb still dreaming, or did he make it back to reality? Most people obsess over the spinning top, but the real Easter egg is in his hand. Throughout the movie, Cobb only wears his wedding ring when he's in the dream world. In the real world, it's gone. So when you watch carefully, you'll notice that in the final scene, he doesn't have the ring on. That tiny detail suggests he's finally awake. However, these are fan theories and Christopher Nolan never confirmed it, but the ring is one of those subtle clues that hardcore fans point to whenever the debate comes up. It's such a small thing, but it changes the way you look at the entire ending. Toy Story 1995, the Pizza Planet truck. Pixar has this one running gag that shows up again and again, and it all started with Toy Story. Remember the beat-up yellow Pizza Planet delivery truck that takes Woody and Buzz to Pizza Planet? That same truck makes an appearance in almost every Pixar movie afterward. You'll see it parked outside the trailer in A Bug's Life. It drives past the dentist's office in Finding Nemo, and even shows up in Cars, where it's given headlights and emotions. It became Pixar's signature Easter egg, their way of connecting all their films into one little hidden universe. The best part is, you'll never stop spotting it once you know it's always lurking somewhere in the background. The Godfather 1972, the orange warning. In The Godfather, oranges aren't just fruit lying around. They're little warning signs. Every time you see a character handling or sitting near oranges, something bad is about to happen. Vito Corleone is buying oranges right before he gets gunned down in the street. Later, you'll spot oranges on the table during tense sit-downs and even on the hospital bed tray. Francis Ford Coppola admitted he didn't plan it as some grand code at first, but fans and critics noticed the pattern was so much. It became one of the most famous Easter eggs in cinema. Now fans can't watch The Godfather without scanning the screen for oranges, waiting for chaos to hit. Okay, if you're still here, you're probably into this stuff, which is great. So be sure to hit that like and subscribe. All right, back to the video. Jurassic Park, 1993. The clever girl callback. Everyone remembers the raptor scene where Muldoon whispers "clever girl" right before the dinosaur takes him out. But Spielberg tucked in a subtle Easter egg that ties back to that moment later in the movie. When the T-Rex saves the day in the finale, the banner that falls behind her reads "When dinosaurs ruled the earth." It's a direct nod to the theme that the predators, the so-called villains, were always the clever ones in control. And here's the kicker. That banner is actually referencing an old 1970s stop-motion dinosaur film of the exact same name. Spielberg slipped it in as a wink to fans of classic monster cinema, making it a 2-for-1 Easter egg. You think you're watching a straight-up dinosaur blockbuster, but the film is quietly paying tribute to its prehistoric ancestors. Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, 1980. The potato and the shoe. George Lucas and his team at ILM were always scrambling to finish effects shots, which sometimes led to the funniest Easter eggs. In the asteroid chase scene, the Millennium Falcon weaves through a bunch of flying rocks, but not every asteroid is actually made of stone. The effects team snuck in a potato for laughs, thinking nobody would ever notice. Sharp-eyed fans and pause buttons eventually caught it, turning it into a legendary behind-the-scenes gag. But wait, there's more. For years, fans insisted there was also a sneaker floating out there among the asteroids. The asteroid shoe became the stuff of internet legend, with grainy screenshots and debates galore. But this story has been thoroughly debunked by high-res releases and effects nerds everywhere. No shoe has ever been found. Sometimes our brains just want to spot a space boot where there's only blurry space junk. The moral? In Star Wars, as in life, not every Easter egg you hear about actually exists. Unless it's a potato. That one's real, and it's spud-tacular. The Lord of the Rings. The Fellowship of the Ring 2001. Peter Jackson's cameo. Peter Jackson couldn't resist sneaking himself into Middle-earth. In Fellowship of the Ring, when the hobbits first arrive in Bree and head into the Prancing Pony, You'll see a scruffy-looking guy outside munching on a big old carrot. That's Jackson himself. He pops up again in the later films too. In The Two Towers, he's a Rohan warrior. And in Return of the King, he's a sailor in Gondor. It became his little tradition, the same way Alfred Hitchcock always cameoed in his movies. Most fans were too focused on the epic story to notice, but once you spot him, it's hard to miss. Raiders of the Lost Ark, 1981. Star Wars hidden in hieroglyphics. When Indy is exploring the Well of Souls in Raiders of the Lost Ark, the walls are covered in hieroglyphics. At first glance, they just look like random Egyptian carvings. But if you pause and really zoom in, you'll spot two very familiar shapes, R2-D2 and C3PO, carved right into the wall. Spielberg and Lucas were such close collaborators that they couldn't resist sneaking a Star Wars nod into Indiana Jones. It's a blink and you miss it detail, but once you see it, you can't help but laugh at the idea of droids existing in ancient Egypt. It's one of those Easter eggs that rewards the sharp-eyed fans who freeze frame everything. Fight Club 1999, Starbucks everywhere. So here's a fun one. If you rewatch Fight Club with sharp eyes, you'll notice Starbucks cups in many scenes, literally everywhere. They're sitting on desks, they're in the background of offices, even in scenes where it makes no sense. David Fincher admitted he slipped a Starbucks cup into almost every scene as a little joke about corporate culture taking over the world. Most people never catch it the first time, but once you know, it's impossible to unsee. Suddenly, you're spotting cups left and right, and it makes the whole movie feel like one giant Easter egg hiding in plain sight. The Matrix, 1999. Neo's passport date. In The Matrix, there's a tiny Easter egg tucked into Neo's file that fans didn't notice until the DVD era. When Agent Smith is interrogating Neo, you can glimpse his passport. The expiration date? September 11th, 2001. The film came out in 1999, 2 years before the attacks. But that detail became chilling in hindsight. Was it a coincidence? Almost certainly. But fans love pointing out how the Wachowskis filled the movie with hidden symbolism about control, freedom, and the collapse of illusions. That one little date turned into one of the most discussed Easter eggs in movie history simply because of how history lined up with fiction. Titanic, 1997. James Cameron's self-portrait. Remember the scene where Jack sketches Rose like one of his French girls? That sketch isn't actually Leonardo DiCaprio's work. James Cameron himself drew it. If you look closely, you'll notice the hand shown in the close-up shots isn't Leo's either, it's Cameron's hand, filmed separately. He was so particular about the art that he decided to do it himself. It's one of those details most people never realize, but once you know, it makes that scene hit differently. The director literally stepped into his own movie to leave a personal Easter egg in one of its most famous moments. Pirates of the Caribbean. The Curse of the Black Pearl, 2003. Hidden Mickey on the treasure. Disney couldn't resist sneaking their mascot into this swashbuckling adventure. In the treasure cave scene near the end, if you look closely at the piles of gold, some of the coins are arranged in the shape of Mickey Mouse's head. It's quick, buried under all the chaos of the fight, but it's there. Disney has a tradition of hiding hidden Mickeys in their movies and theme parks, and this one slipped by most viewers. Once you spot it, you realize even a gritty pirate curse couldn't keep Disney from leaving a little wink for fans. Iron Man, 2008. The first hint at the Avengers. Marvel's habit of teasing future movies actually started way back in the very first Iron Man. In Tony Stark's workshop, when he's testing the suit, fans with sharp eyes spotted something in the background: Captain America's shield. It's not polished or complete, it's just lying around on a workbench like scrap. At the time, most people missed it. But that little prop was the first hint that Marvel had bigger plans brewing. Years later, when the Avengers finally came together, fans went back and realized that Easter egg was the very first breadcrumb. What seemed like a throwaway background detail turned out to be Marvel quietly planning the biggest movie crossover of all time. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, 2004. The Secret Marauders map joke. In Prisoner of Azkaban, the Marauders map shows where every person is walking around Hogwarts. Cool on its own, right? But if you freeze frame during one of the map shots, you'll notice something hilarious tucked into the corner. Two pairs of footprints are standing super close together in a broom closet. The filmmakers never comment on it, but fans spotted it and realized it's basically a cheeky nod to Hogwarts students sneaking around. It's such a quick gag, you'd never catch it unless you paused, but it shows how the crew slipped in humor for the sharp-eyed fans who comb through every frame. Back to the Future, 1985, Twin Pines Mall becomes Lone Pine Mall. This one's so clever it blows people's minds when they catch it. At the start of Back to the Future, Marty meets Doc at the Twin Pines Mall. But when he travels back to 1955, he crashes the DeLorean through Old Man Peabody's farm and plows right over one of his two prized pine trees. When Marty comes back to 1985 at the end, the mall sign doesn't say Twin Pines anymore, it says Lone Pine Mall. No one ever points it out in the dialogue, but it's one of those tiny background details that proves the time travel actually changed something. It's so small, but it's one of the best Easter eggs in movie history because it rewards people who really pay attention. Pulp Fiction, 1994. The Glowing Briefcase. One of the longest-running movie debates comes from Pulp Fiction. Remember the briefcase that Jules and Vincent pick up? Every time someone opens it, there's this golden glow shining out. Tarantino never explains what's inside, which turned it into one of the coolest Easter eggs in movie history. Some fans say it's Marcellus Wallace's soul. Others think it's just gold bars. And a few believe it's meant to be whatever the audience wants it to be. Tarantino has joked about it but never given a real answer, which keeps the mystery alive. The glow itself was a practical effect, just a light bulb inside the case, but it turned into one of the most iconic cinematic Easter eggs ever. Iron Man 2, 2010. Thor's hammer tease. So if you go back and watch Iron Man 2, there's this little scene near the end where Agent Coulson gets pulled off of babysitting Tony. He tells him he has to head out to New Mexico. Then, in the post-credits scene, we finally see Thor's hammer sitting out in the desert, half buried in the dirt. At the time, it was a total, wait, what? moment. Marvel was basically saying, yeah, we're doing Thor next. And fans who stayed through the credits felt like they were in on this big secret the casual crowd missed. It was Marvel planting seeds in plain sight, and honestly, it made people start sticking around after every credits roll from then on. Finding Nemo, 2003. Buzz Lightyear in the dentist's office. Pixar loves sneaking their characters across different movies, and Finding Nemo has one of the funniest ones. When the camera pans around the dentist's office, if you look at the toy box, you'll spot Buzz Lightyear from Toy Story just sitting there like he's waiting to be played with. It happens super quick, so most people never notice it, but once you do, it feels like Pixar is hinting that all their films exist in the same universe. It's little cameos like this that made fans start hunting for Easter eggs in every Pixar movie that came after. The Shining, 1980. The Impossible Window. Stanley Kubrick was a master of slipping weird details into his movies, and The Shining is basically a goldmine. One of the creepiest Easter eggs is the impossible window in Ullman's office. When Jack first meets the hotel manager, you see a big sunny window behind Ullman's desk. The problem? If you look at the layout of the Overlook Hotel, that office is in the middle of the building. There shouldn't be a window there at all. It's one of those subtle tricks Kubrick used to make the hotel feel unsettling, like the architecture itself doesn't follow normal rules. You don't notice it the first time, but once you do, it makes the whole place feel even more haunted. The Lion King, 1994. Hidden Mickey in the Stars. Disney loves to hide Mickey Mouse shapes in their movies, and The Lion King has a sneaky one most people don't notice. When Mufasa appears to Simba in the night sky, the stars form a hazy outline, and tucked into that glow is a little hidden Mickey. It's subtle, almost like the animators were daring fans to pause and look for it. Disney has done this in dozens of films, but finding one during one of the most emotional scenes in The Lion King feels like the studio's way of saying, yeah, even in a serious moment, we're going to sneak in our mascot. It's tiny, but it's one of those Easter eggs that makes you grin once you know it's there. Ghostbusters, 1984. The Stay Puft Foreshadowing. Everyone remembers the giant Stay Puft Marshmallow Man stomping through New York at the end of Ghostbusters. But what most people don't notice is that the movie actually teases him way earlier. In Dana's apartment, when she's putting groceries away, you can spot a bag of Stay Puft marshmallows on her counter. It's a tiny little background prop that sets up the big reveal later. So when Ray accidentally thinks of Stay Puft as the most harmless thing. It isn't totally random, the brand was already planted in your brain. It's a clever Easter egg that shows the writers were setting up the joke long before the punchline hit. Inception, 2010. The Hidden Names Easter Egg. If you take the first letters of the main characters' names, Dom, Robert, Eames, Arthur, Mal, and Saito, they spell D-R-E-A-M-S. It's one of those subtle details that perfectly sums up the entire movie, but most people miss it on the first watch. Nolan is famous for layering his films with little clues, and this one's so simple yet clever. It's almost like he was daring fans to piece it together, hiding the answer to the movie's theme in plain sight through the characters' names. Once you realize it, you can't help but think, of course he did that. E.T. the Extraterrestrial, 1982, Yoda cameo. Spielberg and George Lucas were close friends, so it's no surprise they slipped little nods to each other's movies into their work. One of the funniest comes in E.T. During the Halloween scene, when all the kids are dressed up, there's one child in a Yoda costume. E.T. spots him and actually waddles over, excited, like he recognizes an old friend. It's quick, but fans caught it instantly. Later, Lucas returned the favor in The Phantom Menace, where you can spot members of E.T.'s species sitting in the Galactic Senate. It turned a small gag into an official crossover, making kids everywhere joke that maybe E.T. really was part of the Star Wars galaxy all along. Goodfellas, 1990, Martin Scorsese's sneaky cameo. So, in Goodfellas, Scorsese doesn't just direct the movie, he actually pops up in it. You've probably seen the scene where Robert De Niro's Jimmy is smoking in the diner, and the camera cuts to a close-up of his hand with a cigarette. The guy sitting across from him? That's Scorsese's real-life mom's hand delivering the food. And later, Scorsese himself can be seen in a blink-and-you'll-miss-it cameo driving a car. It's one of those Easter eggs where the director literally sneaks himself into his own story. It's small, it's fast, but once you know it, you start looking for Scorsese in every one of his films. The Dark Knight, 2008, The Joker's Hidden Chaos. Heath Ledger put so much into his Joker performance that even the little background details became Easter eggs. One of the coolest? In the hospital scene, when he's dressed as a nurse, the name tag on his outfit says Matilda. That's the name of Ledger's real-life daughter. Most people never catch it because the scene is so intense, but it's there. And here's another one. In the opening bank heist, every clown mask is a nod to the ones used in the 1960s Batman series, basically connecting Ledger's Joker back to the character's campy roots. It's wild how the film works on two levels: the surface chaos and the subtle little nods sprinkled in for fans paying extra close attention. How I Met Your Mother, 2005 to 2014. The Countdown to a Heartbreak. One of the wildest Easter eggs is in the episode leading up to Marshall's dad passing away. In every single scene, somewhere in the background, there's a number. It starts at 50, like on a magazine cover, then 49 on a bar menu, 48 on a sign, and it keeps counting down all the way to 1. You don't notice it unless you're looking for it, but when the countdown hits 0, that's when Marshall gets the call about his dad. It's one of the smartest hidden Easter eggs in sitcom history, turning a comedy into this quiet, heartbreaking setup that hits so much harder once you realize the numbers were there the whole time. Frozen, 2013. Tangled cameo at the coronation. During Elsa's coronation scene, if you look closely at the crowd entering the castle, you'll spot Rapunzel and Flynn Rider from Tangled walking in together. Disney straight up dropped a crossover in plain sight, connecting their princess worlds without saying a word. Most people missed it on the first watch because there's so much happening in the scene, but freeze frame it, and you can't miss Rapunzel's short brown hair. It was Disney's way of giving fans a little wink, and it kicked off all those shared Disney Universe fan theories that are still floating around today. The Matrix Reloaded, 2003, the license plate Bible verse. In The Matrix Reloaded, during the big highway chase, the villain's Cadillac has a license plate that reads DA203. It's not random, it's actually a reference to the Bible verse Daniel 2 verse 3, which says, "I have had a dream that troubles me, and I want to know what it means." That's a direct tie into Neo's journey of questioning reality and searching for truth. The Wachowskis loved layering their films with philosophy and religious symbolism, and little details like this are their way of rewarding fans who dig deeper. It's the kind of Easter egg you'll only spot if you pause at the exact right second. But once you catch it, it makes you realize how much thought went into even the smallest props. Seinfeld, 1989 to 1998. Superman is always there. Jerry Seinfeld is a huge Superman fan, and the writers had fun sneaking the Man of Steel into the show over and over again. Sometimes it's obvious, like Jerry having a Superman magnet on his fridge or the statue sitting on his bookshelf. Other times it's more subtle, like quick references in the dialogue. Truth, justice, and the American way sneaks in more than once. The coolest part? Superman is the only character outside the main cast who appears in some form in every single season. It's a low-key Easter egg that connects the show together. And once you catch on, you'll start spotting Superman stuff all over Jerry's apartment. 1917, 2019. The rat foreshadowing. Sam Mendes's 1917 is famous for looking like it was shot in one continuous take, but it's also full of small details that pay off later. One of the smartest Easter eggs happens in the German bunker scene. Before the explosion, a rat scurries across some tripwires, setting off the trap. If you've been paying close attention earlier, you actually see rats nibbling on food in the background during quieter moments, almost as if Mendes is hinting that they'll eventually play a bigger role. It's subtle, but it turns a gross detail about trench life into clever foreshadowing. And here's another neat touch. In one of the posters for the movie, the rat is actually hidden in the shadows if you look closely. Mendes and his team clearly had fun leaving a trail for fans who like to freeze frame. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, 1971. The Secret Test. Remember the creepy contract the kids sign when they first enter the factory? If you freeze frame it, you'll see that the fine print basically gives Wonka total control, saying things like, "All your rights are waived, and we shall not be held responsible." Most people never read it because it's so tiny. But it's an Easter egg showing that the entire tour was a setup to test who would actually respect his rules. It makes the ending hit even harder, because Charlie's honesty stands out against all the sneaky legal tricks hidden in plain sight. Gene Wilder's wink after Charlie gives back the gobstopper feels like confirmation that the whole thing was a giant moral trap. Titanic, 1997, the real-life passengers' cameos. James Cameron filled Titanic with tiny nods to actual passengers who were on the ship. One of the best Easter eggs is the elderly couple lying in bed together as the water rushes in. That wasn't just a random extra shot, it was based on Isidore and Ida Strauss, the co-owners of Macy's, who really did choose to stay together on the ship rather than separate. There's also a quick glimpse of a young boy spinning a top on the deck before the iceberg hits, which was lifted directly from a famous photograph of kids playing on the actual Titanic. These moments fly by so fast that most people never connect them, but they show how Cameron tucked in real history as Easter eggs to ground the film's romance in reality. The Office, 2005 to 2013. The Scranton Strangler tease. So throughout The Office, there are little nods to the mysterious Scranton Strangler case. It's usually just background chatter, like a headline on Toby's desk or a passing reference on the radio. But here's the fun Easter egg. If you freeze frame one of the scenes during the car chase news clip, the car looks a lot like Toby's. Fans latched onto that detail and started this whole theory that Toby was actually the Scranton Strangler all along. The writers never confirm it, but they sprinkle enough hints that it feels intentional. It's one of those Easter eggs that turned into a full-on fan conspiracy, and honestly, it keeps The Office rewatchable because you're constantly scanning for clues. Saving Private Ryan, 1998. The typewriter Easter egg. Steven Spielberg hit a subtle nod to himself in Saving Private Ryan. In the opening scenes at the War Department, when secretaries are typing out the death notices to soldiers' families, one of the typewriters has a small label with the name Spielberg on it. It flashes by so quickly you'd never notice unless you paused. It's his quiet signature on a film that otherwise feels gritty and grounded in history. Beyond that, there's also a clever Easter egg in the casting. Matt Damon was intentionally chosen as Private Ryan because he wasn't a huge star yet. Spielberg wanted audiences to see him as an everyman. But then, right before the movie came out, Damon won an Oscar for Good Will Hunting, so the plan kind of backfired. That twist itself became an unintentional Easter egg in how the film plays today. Psycho, 1960. The skull in the finale. In the final scene of Psycho, when Norman Bates is sitting in the police station and he looks up at the camera with that chilling smile, there's a quick, almost subliminal Easter egg. If you pause at the exact moment, you'll see his face briefly overlay with a skull. It's Hitchcock's way of showing that Norman and Mother have completely merged, visually hinting at death taking over his identity. Most viewers don't consciously notice it, but it sticks in your head, making that last stare even more unsettling. Hitchcock loved playing tricks like this, hiding tiny details that worked on your brain even if you didn't catch them outright. Dunkirk, 2017. The Stuka Siren sound trick. In Dunkirk, the German dive bombers, the Stukas, have this terrifying scream as they plummet toward the soldiers on the beach. Most people assume that's just a scary sound effect, but it's actually historically accurate. The Nazis literally bolted sirens onto the planes, called Jericho trumpets, to make their dives more psychologically terrifying. Nolan cranked that up in the mix, turning it into a recurring audio Easter egg throughout the film. Anytime you hear that siren, you know chaos is about to hit, and your stomach drops along with the characters. It's not flashy like a hidden cameo, but it's a small detail that connects directly to history while also training the audience to panic every time it kicks in. The Simpsons, 1989 to present. The McBain hidden movie? This one's legendary. Scattered across random episodes, you'll see clips of Rainier Wolfcastle as McBain, the show's parody of Arnold Schwarzenegger. At first it seems like just quick cutaway jokes, but if you actually line up all the McBain clips from different seasons, they form a full mini-movie with a beginning, middle, and end. It's wild. The writers were basically hiding a complete action film inside the show, spread out over years of episodes. Most fans never noticed until someone edited them together online. And suddenly you realize The Simpsons had been playing a long game the whole time. It's one of the coolest Easter eggs in TV history because it was hiding in plain sight for decades. Blade Runner, 1982. The Millennium Falcon cameo. Ridley Scott's Blade Runner has one of the coolest blink and you'll miss it Easter eggs. When Deckard flies over the futuristic city, one of the buildings has a shape that looks suspiciously familiar. That's because the model makers actually used a piece of the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars and repurposed it as part of the skyline. Industrial Light and Magic worked on both films, so they were constantly kit-bashing models. It's quick, but once you know, you can't unsee Han Solo's ship hiding in dystopian Los Angeles. It's a little cross-universe nod that sci-fi fans love to point out. Avengers Endgame 2019, the Community cameos. The Russo brothers, who directed Endgame, used to work on the sitcom Community. And if you watch closely, you'll notice they slipped in cameos from some of their old cast. Ken Jeong shows up as a security guard during Scott Lang's storage unit scene, and Yvette Nicole Brown pops up as the suspicious S.H.I.E.L.D. employee on the elevator when Tony and Cap travel back to the 1970s. Most fans were too busy freaking out over time heists and portals to notice, but for anyone who loved Community, it was a hidden little thank you. The Russos basically turned the most epic Marvel movie into a reunion if you knew where to look. The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring 2001, the car in Middle-earth. Yep, even in Peter Jackson's masterpiece, a modern mistake turned into an Easter egg. In one wide shot where the Fellowship is trekking through the Shire, if you look closely in the distance, you can actually see a car driving along a road. It happens fast and most people miss it, but once fans spotted it, it became one of those legendary unintended Easter eggs that people still laugh about. It's like Middle-earth got its first automobile cameo. Later versions on DVD tried to clean it up. But the myth of the car in the Shire lives on as one of the funniest hidden details in the trilogy. It's crazy how much detail slips by the first time you watch, right? Now I want to hear from you. Which of these Easter eggs surprised you the most? Did we miss one of your favorites? Or maybe you've got a hidden detail only true fans would know. Drop it in the comments, because I'd love to see what you guys have spotted. If you enjoyed this, I'd greatly appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. I'll be posting a lot more videos here, so give us a comment on what you'd like to see next. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.